What if AI could build your app? So this is the app we'll be creating. If you type in Washington, it will get the weather for Washington with a 5-day forecast for Washington, and also an AI summary with more information to do with the weather during that period. If I type in London, it will also get the weather, the temperature for London, as you can see, the 5-day forecast for this week. I type in a very hot country such as Africa, it shows a hot climate, hot temperatures for Africa with the description. If I type in a very cold country such as Russia, then you'll see it's in minus degrees, it's freezing. So this is the application we'll be creating using Swift and SwiftUI. The next thing we need to do is to build a readable location string that will include the actual countries and the cities such as London, England, UK. We type the following: let loc summary, as in location summary, equals to first.name, first.admin1, and then first.country. So these are the elements that we are storing within our array. And then we type in the following: compact map, the purpose of using the contact map $0 is to remove nil values, like null values. Within the array, we want everything to be unique, so remove any duplicates. And then we type in joined separator. To join the string, as in to join each of these elements into a single string. The next thing we need to do is to fetch the actual weather using try, await. So we fetch the actual weather using the coordinates. So we have to create another function called fetch Open-Meteo. So that function will accept 2 parameters. I'll just paste the code that's already on the clipboard. And now we can continue to pass in the parameters that's needed for that function. We need lat and long. So that'll be first.latitude, and the longitude will be first.longitude. As I said earlier, that's to fetch the weather data using the coordinates. So now we will explain the function that we created. So The first line allows the parameters to be accessible by passing them in, and then we return the weather response. On the next line, line 29, we build our API request using the endpoint. If there's an error, we just return or throw a bad URL error. And then on line 34, we start to build up our parameters that's required for the weather, such as the latitude, the longitude, and the current temperature, the daily temperature, and the time zone, which is also detected. And on lines 47, line 45, we perform the actual GET request that will get the weather. Since we've now got a payload, we will now extract the response. And then that response is then fed into the weather response struct that we created. And then it's decoded using JSON decoder. And on line 55, we just handle any errors that may happen. The next thing we need to do is to build the current weather model. Netcur equals current weather. And then for the current weather model, we have to pass in wx.current.temperature underscore 2m. And we also pass in wx current weather code. And then the next thing we need to do is to build the daily forecast array that will show the actual 5-day weather forecast, as you can see here. Bar daily forecast, let days equals min wx daily, time count, and then we limit it to 7 days, although the UI only shows 5 days. The next thing we need to do is to loop through the days. That includes the actual weather forecast for the 5 days. Daily append, that should be init, and then we pass in wx daily time to get the index for the time, we'll do a similar thing for the temperature for the daily. Temperature min and get the array element, and we'll do similar thing for the max. WX daily dot temperature max and get the element, and then for the weather code we get the array element for the weather code also. Daily weather code open bracket I, and then we need another closing bracket to get rid of the error. And then we have to create another structure or another struct within this function. And this is these are the structures that AI will receive as a JSON payload. So that struct, well, let me just get it from the clipboard instead of typing it in. And just paste it now. Struct. The next thing we need to do is to create another variable that will capture the ISO 86 date formatter. So we create a new instance of the of the ISO date formatter object, and then we assign the format options property equal to the full date, so we get the full date. And that should be ISO. The next thing we need to do is to convert the Swift models into friendly AI JSON objects. So we just type in the following: toolout equals toolout, and then we select the third overload, and then just pass in the parameters, the variables. So that will be location or lock summary. Dot temperature C, and also dot weather code, and for the forecast that will be accepting an array. So we just need to type in daily.map in it, and then we just pass in the date, ISO string, from $0 date. For min c, similar thing. $.min c, max c, which will be $.max c, weather code will be $0 weather code. And then we need a closing bracket. Expected. Yeah. There's an error there somewhere. The weather code was spelled incorrectly, so we need to refactor that. It should be that's current weather. It should be, as you can see, spelling mistake. It should be weather code within the current weather. See if that works now. Yeah, that's fixed the issue there. Incorrect arguments label. Let's just click on fix to fix it. So the next thing we need to do is to encode the JSON for the OpenAI. Type in the following, let payload data equals try data equals try JSON encoder encode tool out let payload JSON equals string data payload data encoding dot UTF-8 else if it's unable to, let me just supply an open and a closed bracket for an empty JSON struct. The next thing we need to do is to build the UI bundle for the view model. UI bundle is UI bundle. So that will include the block summary and also we need to supply current which is curve and the forecast for the daily. cannot convert value of type string to expected argument type current weather. So the UI bundle needs to be updated to reflect this structure. So what we need to do now is to return the actual payload to the caller, return payload JSON and the UI bundle. So the next file we need to create is a Weather AI view model. Weather AI view model. Type in the following, import SwiftUI, @main actor, final class, Weather AI view model, using observable object to detect any changes in the class so that those changes can be published to the UI. Private let weather service, private let summary service, weather summary service. So they're the two dependencies that we're using at the moment. And we also need to create our publish variable that I mentioned a minute ago, var user prompt string. We need to create an enum for our view state, and that will include the following cases such as idle when it's not doing anything, case to detect when it's loading a prompt, case when it's loaded, and also when any errors happen, we just display the message to the console or maybe on the UI. And we also need to create a publish write property using set var state view state. So the view state will be or will contain idle, will be assigned idle as default. Var has data, bool, if case, dot, loaded, so there should be if case dot loaded equals state, then just return true. Else just return false. In our next tutorial, we will continue to implement the functions for the view model, for the weather AI view model.